Well, if you can't tell by the hat on my head, fall is here. And we're starting to get some really chilly mornings. Which reminds us that we want to tell you that all of our apparel is 22% off on the Farm Focus site. We do currently have t-shirts and stocking hats like you see in here. We are working on getting ball caps and sweatshirts. However, the unique part about our apparel is all of it is made in the USA. I'm not saying that we're the only YouTube channel that does that. But what I am saying is I challenge you to find another one and tag them down below. So when you go take advantage of that Farm Focus sale, don't forget about our brand. Good morning, everyone. We thought today would be a great day to go through the whole spray foam process. So not just, how well we like it, but also show a little bit of the installation process on what we had to do to get stuff out of the way. Pretty simple in our case. Moved everything from one side to the other, and then they sprayed that side, then moved everything back to the opposite side, and they sprayed the side that was remaining, and they were pretty well good. Not a difficult process for me, but it kind of shows how they applied it a little bit. Remember that this was installed in late June of 2022, and today is October 9th, 2022. So we've had it for several months now, and we got to experience it with the heat, and we also got to experience it with some cool weather now because fall's here. First and foremost here, this is just how the installation ended. Remember, there are some girders that are under here, so that's why you have some spots that are out farther than others. But overall, it is not going to be a perfectly smooth texture on the outside. This is 3-inch thick, so these are 2x6s, and overall, they applied it at a 3-inch rate. I know some spots it's a little thicker, but for the most part, it's 3 inches all the way around. And that includes the ceiling as well. This is all open cell foam, and the reason that we did open cell was simply we wanted to ensure that no matter if we have a leak that happens later on in our shop's life, we'll find out about it, because with open cell, water will leak through it. That means, like, if let's say a screw backs out on the roof and water's starting to get through there, it may not leak in the exact spot that it's coming through at, but it'll be in that general area, and it'll show us that there is an issue up there that we need to address. That's why we went with open cell. Closed cell is an excellent insulation factor, and it actually takes 1 inch of closed cell to equate to 3 inches of open cell. So yes, we do have more open cell because of it. But on the other hand, if we ever have a leak, we will know about it. Closed cell will not let water through it, and it'll actually just stay up there with those boards and eventually rot them. Now, our shop does have the ability to be heated, and it sort of has the ability to be cooled, but not with an air conditioner. Up here behind me on the wall, this is an Inkbird Pro thermostat, and we're going to show you a little bit more about it on the app that we use. Excellent tool, but what I do want to kind of point out is that it has two 110 outlets on it, and they're different circuits on the thermostat to basically kick on heating or to kick on cooling. You'll notice that we only have the cooling side plugged in right now because we use this exhaust fan right here to bring cool air in if we need it. Now, that's not going to be needed so much anymore, just because of the simple fact that winter's not here, but fall is definitely here, and the mornings are really cold. So last night it was 33 degrees outside temp. So we didn't get any frost, but I'm sure in the bottoms on our place we have some frost there. But up here where the shop's at, there was no frost, and the temperature in here is 62.1, and we have no heat setup running right now. So this is our heat setup. Underneath of those bags in that filter, there's a heat exchanger inside this box, and it has a 110 volt blower motor, and that basically pulls air through a heat exchanger from the wood boilers where it gets the heat, but the wood boiler's not running right now because it's just not cold enough to justify running it. So without any heat on, we're going to show you the trend temps. All right, so you can see in this chart, so this is October 8th, so this was 2 days ago now, but you can see that the coolest time of the day in the shop is always when we first open when sun comes up. So sunrise is always going to be the coolest time of the day. As soon as the sun rises, obviously the temp starts going up from there. No different in the building, and I think that's just because the heat that is the sun hitting the building still produces some heat inside the building. If you look a little farther in the day when we open the door, so for instance it was 65 degrees at 9:30, but obviously I opened the door somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45 and temp dropped to 61. And then once I closed it, it took it a little bit before it got back up to 64.8. And then obviously I opened it again, left it open for a while. However, just wanted to show you how the app tracks it. So we're going to continue on, and we got to a high in the building of 68. 68 degrees was the high in the whole day in that building, and that was at 17:45. And from there it starts to cool off. I don't think I had any doors open, but it's possible I had it open for short periods of time just to move something in or out. Keep going through the night, and now we're going to go to October 9th, and we're going to go to the very beginning of the day, October 9th. So that would be overnight last night. And overnight last night, you can see it continues to cool off just like it did before, all the way until sunrise. And sunrise is roughly around 7. It got down to 60.9 degrees, and it was 33 degrees for the low overnight. We actually had some frost down in some of the low spots on our farm, so it may have gotten a little cooler than that. But overall, almost 30 degrees higher with no heat source running. I absolutely love that. That is good information. So for the most part, like you kind of seen with those trend temps, the heat, so whatever heat's being created outside, so the sun, kind of beating on the building and warming that metal up, doesn't really transition through the spray foam, which is nice. I mean, it brings some through, but it doesn't let a lot through. Before we had all this insulation on here, this building, it wasn't uninhabitable during the summertime, but it was rough. So whatever the outside temp was, so if it was say 90 degrees for the high that day and sunny, it would be roughly about 110 inside this building. And no matter if you opened all the doors and the windows and everything else and turned the exhaust fan on and pull air through, it just didn't matter. There was so much heat coming off of and radiating from the metal that you just couldn't counter it. Made it like wind, right? That's probably something else that everybody's gonna say something like, oh, I heard it really blocks wind great. A few nights ago, I don't have the data for it unfortunately, but a few nights ago, it was incredibly windy out. 15 plus mile an hour winds, like sustained, and then gusts of 20 to 25, and it was a north wind to top it off. So it was a very cool and cold wind. The low temperature that night was like 40 or something like that, but the real feel was in the low 30s. Not freezing, but really close to it. Didn't change anything in here. It was still more than 20 degrees above the outside temperature inside this building with no heat source running. No vehicles are in here to keep it warm. Nothing. Just what it is. What you see is kind of what you're dealing with here. Even though we have the ability to probably maintain this at say 75 degrees in here, I don't know that we will. It just kind of depends on how efficient it is. But right now, from what you've seen on the trend charts where it's 20 degrees warmer in here overnight, so 33 last night and 62 in here this morning, I feel pretty confident that the residual heat, because that water from that wood boiler that we showed you outside is pumping through there all the time. So there's always residual heat coming off it, even if the blower motor is not running. I think that the heat that's pulled up, or that's coming off of that, is trapped in this building. And then not only that, we park our vehicles in here primarily in the winter. In the spring and the summer and the fall, we don't really park them in here unless there's bad weather. But in the wintertime we do, because it keeps frost off our windows. So in the morning, we don't have to leave a vehicle run for a long period of time to defrost, or we don't have to go out there and scrape it in the cold weather. Like I said, I think that the amount of heat that it's going to trap in here is pretty incredible, just from what we've seen right now. And it's kind of thought we would show how we're heating this building when we heat it. So right now, like I said, it's not on. This is a Woodmaster 5500 wood, or wood boiler or outdoor boiler, however you want to call it. And that's the control panel for it. Like I said, nothing's on, but if it was on, this right here would all light up and have whatever the temperature of the water is. This just tells us how full or empty the water tank is. But there's 2 pumps that come off the back of this, and those 2 pumps are what push water that's heated from here to a heat exchanger. So one obviously goes to the house, one goes here to the shop. Nice because, like I say, the one for the pump that's feeding the house, let's say if it fails, I could pull the one off the shop and then still have my heat for the house, because that's more important than the shop, sort of. You can see that we actually have it ready to go, but essentially once it's going, this is just a firebox, and it's surrounded by a lot of water jackets to transfer that heat from the firebox into the water, and then obviously it goes to the heat exchanger.